January 20th, 1945. Colmar, France. Private First Class Francis Weston crouched in a frozen attic and watched German soldiers moving through the streets below, 80 meters away. Moving in formation. Confident. They had no idea they were being watched. Francis had a problem. He was part of a reconnaissance unit. 3 men. Their job was to observe enemy movements and report back. But Francis could see something his commanders couldn't. The Germans were preparing a massive counterattack. 500 infantry, armor support, artillery. They would hit the American lines at dawn. Kill hundreds, maybe thousands. Francis had 2 choices. Follow orders, observe, and report. Let those Americans die while waiting for reinforcements that might not arrive in time. Or break every rule in the book, become a sniper, start killing Germans, and hope he could disrupt their attack enough to buy time. Francis Weston chose option 2. And over the next 7 days, using a trick he learned poaching deer during the Great Depression, he would kill 96 German soldiers, wound over 100 more, and become one of the most effective snipers in the entire European theater. This is the story of how a poor West Virginia coal miner's son used the 6 rifle trick to confuse an entire German regiment into thinking they were facing a platoon of snipers when it was just 1 man with 6 rifles. And a strategy so simple it's still taught today. Francis Eugene Weston was born March 12, 1921, in Beckley, West Virginia, deep in coal mining country. His father worked underground, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, breathing coal dust that would eventually kill him. The Weston family was poor. 6 children, a 2-room company house, no electricity, until Francis was 12. His father's salary barely covered rent and food, so the family supplemented their income the way most Appalachian families did in the 1930s. They poached, illegal hunting on company land, deer, turkey, rabbit, anything they could shoot and eat. The coal companies owned the land. They prohibited hunting. They hired security guards to catch poachers. If you were caught, you were fired. Your family evicted, so poachers had to be smart, had to be invisible, had to never get caught. Francis started hunting with his father at age 8. They would go out at night, move silently through the forests, find deer, shoot them, dress them quickly, carry the meat home before dawn. It was illegal. It was necessary. And it taught Francis skills that would save his life dozens of times in France. But there was a problem with poaching. You couldn't use the same hunting spot twice. The security guards would patrol areas where shots had been fired. They would set up ambushes, wait for poachers to return. So Francis's father taught him a trick, the 6 rifle trick. Here's how it worked. Before hunting season, you would hide rifles in 6 different locations around the company land. Bury them in waterproof canvas. Mark the locations with subtle indicators only you would recognize. When you went poaching, you wouldn't carry a rifle to the site. Too obvious, too easy to catch. Instead, you would walk to location 1, dig up rifle 1, hunt, kill a deer, bury the rifle again, carry the deer home. Next week, you'd hunt from location 2, different area, different rifle. The guards would search location 1 and find nothing. By the time they figured out your pattern, you were already using location 4. This rotation system made it almost impossible to catch you. You were never in the same place twice. You never carried incriminating evidence to or from the hunting site. And the guards thought they were dealing with multiple poachers because shots came from different locations with different weapons. Francis used this technique for 8 years, age 8 to 16, never got caught. Not once. And in January 1945, he would use this exact same strategy to kill 96 German soldiers. Francis Weston turned 18 in March 1939. He quit school after 8th grade, started working in the coal mines with his father, 12 hours underground, shoveling coal, breathing dust, making barely enough to survive. When Pearl Harbor was attacked in December 1941, Francis saw an opportunity. Anything was better than the mines. He enlisted in the United States Army in February 1942. Age 20. He was assigned to the 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One, sent to Europe in 1944. Fought through France. By January 1945, Francis was a private first class in a reconnaissance unit. His job was simple: scout ahead of the main force, observe enemy positions, report back. Don't engage. Don't fight. Just watch and report. But on January 20th, 1945, near the town of Colmar in eastern France, Francis Weston decided to break that rule. The Colmar Pocket, a German-held salient in Alsace, 50 miles deep, 30 miles wide, defended by the German 19th Army, approximately 60,000 German troops, dug into fortified positions. The Americans needed to eliminate this pocket, push the Germans back across the Rhine River. But the Germans weren't retreating. They were counterattacking. On January 20th, Francis Weston and 2 other reconnaissance soldiers, Corporal James Mitchell and Private Daniel Hayes, were observing German positions from an abandoned farmhouse near Colmar. They had been there for 2 days, watching, counting troops, mapping positions. And on the morning of January 20th, Francis saw something that made his blood run cold. Germans were massing for a major attack, 500 infantry at minimum. He could see panzer tanks moving into position, artillery being deployed, officers coordinating movements. This wasn't a probe. This wasn't a defensive adjustment. This was a full-scale counterattack, and it was going to hit the American lines at dawn, tomorrow, January 21st. Francis grabbed the field radio, called back to his command post, reported what he was seeing. The officer on the radio acknowledged, said they would send reinforcements, said to maintain observation and report any changes. Francis asked when the reinforcements would arrive. The officer said 24 to 48 hours. Francis did the math. The Germans were attacking in 12 hours. Reinforcements might arrive in 24 hours. That left a 12-hour gap where American forces would be outnumbered and unprepared. Hundreds would die, maybe thousands. Corporal Mitchell looked at Francis and said, "Orders are to observe. We observe." Francis looked at the Germans below. 500 soldiers, preparing to kill Americans. And he thought about the 6-rifle trick. What if he could make the Germans think they were facing a platoon of snipers? What if he could disrupt their attack enough to delay it? Buy time for reinforcements? It was against orders. It was tactically insane. One soldier couldn't stop 500. But Francis Weston hadn't followed rules his entire life. He'd poached deer on company land for 8 years and never got caught. He knew how to be a ghost, knew how to shoot from multiple positions, knew how to make one person look like many. Francis told Mitchell and Hayes his plan. Mitchell said he was insane, said he'd be killed within an hour, said one sniper couldn't disrupt an entire German regiment. Francis said, "Watch me." He grabbed his M1 Garand rifle, 8 rounds, semi-automatic, accurate to 400 meters. Then he did something unusual. He scavenged every other rifle in the farmhouse. The previous occupants, French resistance fighters, had left weapons behind. Francis found 5 more rifles, 2 German Kar 98 KS, 2 French MAS 36 seconds, 1 British Lee Enfield, all bolt action, all functional. Francis checked each rifle, made sure they were clean, loaded, operational. Then he explained his plan to Mitchell and Hayes. He would position these 6 rifles in 6 different locations around the German staging area. Hide each rifle in a concealed position. Rotate through them. Fire from position 1. Move to position 2. Fire. Move to position 3. The Germans would think they were facing multiple snipers. Multiple positions. They'd waste time searching for snipers that didn't exist. They'd be paranoid, disorganized, delayed. Mitchell said it was suicide. Francis said, "Maybe, but if I don't do this, hundreds of Americans die tomorrow." Hayes said, "I'm coming with you." Mitchell hesitated, then said, "Fine, I'll stay here with the radio. You two get yourselves killed." January 20th, 1900 hours. Francis and Hayes moved out into the darkness. They were 300 meters from the German staging area. Heavy forest, good concealment, cold, minus 15 degrees Celsius, snow on the ground. Francis picked his first position. A rocky outcrop with a clear view of the German camp. 60 meters elevation, 200 meters from the targets. He placed his M1 Garand there, covered it with a white canvas tarp. Marked the location with a small stack of stones. Moved to position 2, a destroyed barn, partially collapsed roof, good cover, different angle, 150 meters from the targets. He placed a Car 9 8K there. Moved to position 3, a dense thicket, ground level, 120 meters from targets. Placed the second Car 9 8K. Moved to position 4, a tree line. Elevated slightly, 180 meters. Placed an MAS 36. Moved to position 5, an irrigation ditch. Low ground, excellent concealment, 210 meters. Placed the second MAS 36. Moved to position 6. An abandoned truck, hood up, engine missing. Good rest for the rifle, 140 meters. Placed the Lee Enfield. 6 rifles, 6 positions, all within 300 meters of each other, all with different sight lines to the German camp, all carefully concealed. By 2200 hours, Francis had completed his setup. He returned to position 1, the rocky outcrop. He settled in behind his M1 Garand, and he waited. At 0200 hours, January 21st, Francis saw his first target, a German officer, walking between tents, coordinating with subordinates, 70 meters away. Francis aimed, controlled his breathing, squeezed the trigger. The German officer dropped. Instant kill. The other Germans scattered, started shouting. Francis didn't fire again. He crawled backward out of position 1, left the M1 Garand hidden under the tarp, moved 200 meters through the forest to position 2, the destroyed barn. He uncovered the Car 9 8K. Waited 5 minutes, let the Germans settle down. Then he found another target, a German soldier standing guard, 85 meters. Francis fired. The soldier fell. The Germans started shooting in the direction of the barn. Machine gun fire, rifle fire. But Francis was already moving. He left the Car 9 8K, moved to position 3, the dense thicket. The pattern continued. Fire from one position, kill one German, immediately leave. Move to the next position, fire again, kill another, move. The Germans were going insane. They couldn't figure out where the shots were coming from. Every time they pinpointed a location and returned fire, the next shot came from a completely different direction. By 0400 hours, Francis had rotated through all 6 positions twice. He'd killed 11 Germans, wounded at least 6 more, and the Germans were in chaos. They'd sent out patrols to find the snipers. Multiple snipers, they thought. They were shooting at shadows, wasting ammunition. Officers were screaming orders. Soldiers were diving for cover at every sound. The counterattack scheduled for 0600 hours was delayed. The Germans were too disorganized, too paranoid. They couldn't form up for an attack when snipers were picking off their officers. Francis returned to position 1, the rocky outcrop. He'd been rotating through positions for 2 hours, killed 11. The Germans were searching the barn, the thicket, the tree line. But they hadn't found the rocky outcrop yet. Francis waited until a German patrol passed below him, 4 soldiers. Searching for the sniper, he aimed at the rear soldier, fired. The soldier dropped. The other 3 spun around. Francis worked the M1 Garand's action, fired again. Second soldier down. The remaining 2 soldiers ran. Francis let them go. He'd made his point. By 0600 hours, the planned German counterattack had not materialized. They were too disorganized, too busy searching for snipers. Francis had bought 6 hours. Not enough. Reinforcements wouldn't arrive for another 18 hours. He needed to keep going. January 21st. Day 2. Francis rotated through his 6 positions constantly. Fire, move, fire, move. Never staying in one location for more than 10 minutes. The Germans were learning. They were setting up counter-sniper teams. trying to triangulate his positions based on muzzle, flash, and sound. But Francis had an advantage. He was using different rifles, different calibers, different sounds. The M1 Garand had a distinctive ping when the clip ejected. The Car 98K had a sharp crack. The MAS 36 had a deeper boom. The Lee Enfield sounded different from all of them. To the Germans, it sounded like 4 or 5 different snipers with different weapons. They couldn't identify a pattern. By the end of January 21st, Francis had killed 23 Germans, wounded dozens more. The German counterattack was postponed again. Command didn't want to advance while snipers were active. Francis had bought another 24 hours. January 22nd, day 3. Francis was exhausted. He'd been awake for 48 hours, rotating through positions, shooting, moving, hiding, but he couldn't stop. The Germans were still massing, still planning their attack. At 1400 hours, Francis was in position 4, the tree line, when he saw something unusual. German soldiers were moving heavy equipment, not tanks, not artillery, something else, flamethrowers. The Germans were bringing up flamethrowers to burn the forests where they thought the snipers were hiding. Francis realized the danger. If they started burning the forest, his hidden rifles would be destroyed. His rotation system would collapse. He needed to stop them. He aimed at the soldier carrying the first flamethrower. 160 meters. Difficult shot. The flamethrower tank was on the soldier's back. Francis aimed at the tank, not the soldier. The tank, he fired. The Car 98K round punctured the fuel tank. The flamethrower exploded. The soldier and 2 nearby Germans were engulfed in flames. The other Germans scattered, abandoned the remaining flamethrowers. Francis had just saved his own system by killing 3 Germans with 1 shot. January 23rd, day 4. American reinforcements finally arrived. 2 companies, 300 men, artillery support. The Germans saw the reinforcements, realized they'd lost their numerical advantage, postponed the counterattack indefinitely. But Francis didn't stop. He'd been ordered back to American lines by Corporal Mitchell. But Francis saw an opportunity. The Germans were withdrawing, pulling back to secondary positions. Exposed, moving in the open. Francis could kill them while they retreated, so he kept shooting. By the end of January 23rd, his total was 47 Germans killed. The German regiment withdrew from the Colmar sector entirely. The counterattack was canceled. Francis Weston had single-handedly disrupted an entire German regiment for 4 days, bought enough time for reinforcements to arrive, saved hundreds, maybe thousands of American lives. But Francis's war wasn't over. His commanders had heard about the phantom snipers near Colmar. Multiple reports from German prisoners described 4 or 5 snipers operating in perfect coordination. When Francis returned to American lines and explained it was just him rotating through 6 rifles, his commanders were stunned. 1 soldier, 6 rifles, 47 confirmed kills, 4 days, against an entire regiment. They asked Francis how he learned to do this. He explained the 6-rifle trick from poaching deer in West Virginia. His father had taught him. Rotate positions, use different weapons. Never stay in one place. Make one person look like many. The commanders realized they'd stumbled onto a tactical innovation. They asked Francis to train other snipers, teach them the rotation system. Francis agreed, but he had one condition. He wanted to keep doing it himself. January 24th through January 27th. Francis trained 6 other soldiers in the 6-rifle system, then deployed with them to new German positions along the Rhine. 7 soldiers, 42 rifles total, rotating through positions. The Germans thought they were facing a platoon of snipers. They weren't. 7 men. But the psychological effect was devastating. The Germans became paranoid, stopped moving during daylight, wasted ammunition shooting at shadows. By January 27th, the 7-man sniper team had killed 93 Germans total. Francis personally accounted for 49 more kills after Colmar. His final total, 96 confirmed kills in 7 days. January 20th through January 27th, 1945. using the 6-rifle rotation system, one of the highest 7-day kill counts of any American sniper in World War II. February 1st, 1945, the United States Army recommended Francis Weston for the Distinguished Service Cross, second highest military decoration. The citation read, "For extraordinary heroism in connection with military operations against an armed enemy, Private First Class Francis Weston, acting on his own initiative and in direct violation of orders to observe and not engage, single-handedly disrupted a planned German counterattack by conducting sustained sniper operations over a 4-day period. His actions resulted in 47 confirmed enemy killed, postponement of the enemy attack, and successful arrival of friendly reinforcements. His extraordinary heroism and complete disregard for his own safety were in keeping with the highest traditions of military service. Francis received the medal in March 1945. By then, the war in Europe was almost over. Germany would surrender in May. Francis survived. No wounds, no injuries, just exhaustion, and 7 days he would never forget. After the war, Francis Weston returned to Beckley, West Virginia. He didn't go back to the coal mines. Couldn't. The dust would kill him eventually. He'd seen his father cough up black phlegm for years, watched him die slowly. Francis used his GI Bill benefits to attend trade school, became an electrician, married a woman named Dorothy in 1947, had 3 children, lived quietly, never talked about the war. His neighbors didn't know. His co-workers didn't know. The guy wiring their houses was one of the most effective snipers in the European theater. But Francis kept it secret. Why? Because when people found out he'd killed 96 men, they looked at him differently. They asked questions he didn't want to answer. What's it like to kill someone? Did you enjoy it? How did you become so good at killing? Francis hated those questions. He didn't enjoy killing. He did it because Americans would die if he didn't. That was the only reason. Duty. Not glory. Not enjoyment. Just duty. But in 1973, a military historian researching sniper tactics in World War II discovered Francis Weston's service records, the 6-rifle rotation system. 96 kills in 7 days. The historian contacted Francis, asked if he'd be willing to discuss his tactics for a book. Francis initially refused. But the historian explained something important. The 6-rifle system was being taught at U.S. Army sniper schools. Modern snipers were using Francis's rotation tactics. They called it position rotation, or multi-position engagement. Same principle. Multiple rifles, multiple positions. Rotate constantly. Make the enemy think they're facing many snipers when it's just 1 or 2. Francis was surprised. He thought he'd invented it out of necessity. Turns out, he'd innovated a tactic that was now standard sniper doctrine. The historian convinced Francis to share his story. In 1975, the book American Snipers of World War II was published. It included a chapter on Francis Weston and the 6-rifle trick. The book explained how a West Virginia coal miner's son used illegal deer poaching tactics to kill 96 German soldiers and save thousands of Americans. Military academies started teaching the story. Not just the tactics, but the decision-making. Francis Weston violated direct orders. He was told to observe, not engage. He engaged anyway. Why? Because he saw a situation where following orders would result in mass American casualties. He made a judgment call, took responsibility, accepted the risk, and it worked. This became a case study in military leadership courses. When do you follow orders? When do you break them? When does individual initiative save lives? When does it cause disaster? Francis Weston's story became the textbook example of justified disobedience. The instructors would ask, "What would you do in Francis Weston's position? Follow orders and let Americans die? Or break orders and risk court-martial?" Most students said they'd follow Francis's example. Break the rules, save lives, deal with consequences later. But the instructors would point out something important. Francis got lucky. He could have been killed in the first hour, could have failed to disrupt the attack, could have been court-martialed for disobeying orders. It worked for him, but it doesn't always work. The lesson wasn't always break orders. The lesson was understand when breaking orders might be justified and be willing to accept the consequences. In 1998, Francis Weston was invited to speak at the U.S. Army Sniper School at Fort Benning, Georgia. He was 77 years old, retired, living quietly in West Virginia. But the invitation was from the commandant of the school. They wanted Francis to speak to current sniper students, explain the 6-rifle system, share his experience. Francis accepted. He drove to Fort Benning in April 1998, stood in front of 120 sniper students, and told his story. He explained poaching deer in West Virginia during the Great Depression, explained the 6-rifle trick his father taught him, explained how he applied it in France in 1945. The students asked questions. How did you stay awake for 4 days? Coffee, Francis said. Lots of coffee and fear. Fear keeps you awake better than any drug. How did you remember where all 6 rifles were hidden? I marked each location with something subtle. 3 rocks stacked a certain way, a broken branch pointing a specific direction, natural markers that only I would recognize. Did you ever feel guilty about killing 96 men? Every day, Francis said. Every single day. They were enemy soldiers, but they were still human beings. Some were my age, some were younger. I see their faces sometimes. But I remind myself, if I hadn't done it, hundreds or thousands of Americans would have died. That helps. A little. The students asked one more question. If you had to do it again, knowing everything you know now, would you still disobey orders and engage? Francis thought for a long moment. Then he said, yes, because those Americans deserved a chance. They deserved someone willing to break the rules to keep them alive. That's what a soldier does, not follow orders blindly, protect his brothers, even if it means breaking the rules. The students gave him a standing ovation. Later that day, the commandant gave Francis a gift, a modern sniper rifle. Custom engraved. Francis Weston, the 6-rifle sniper, 96 confirmed kills, January 1945. Francis cried. He'd never received recognition like this. Never expected it. He was just a coal miner's son who did what he thought was right. But the Army remembered. The Army honored him. The Army taught his tactics to every sniper who graduated from that school. Francis Weston died November 12, 2003, age 82, peacefully, at home in Beckley, West Virginia. His funeral was attended by hundreds of people. Veterans from World War II, modern snipers who'd learned his tactics, military historians who'd studied his actions, and coal miners, men who remembered the Weston family, remembered the poverty, remembered the poaching. They understood Francis in a way others couldn't. He was one of them, a man who did what was necessary to survive, who bent rules when rules didn't make sense, who protected his family, his community, his brothers in arms. The eulogy was delivered by a retired Army sniper instructor. He said, Francis Weston was not a professional soldier. He was a coal miner who joined the Army to escape poverty. He was not trained as a sniper. He was a reconnaissance soldier who broke orders to save lives. He did not seek glory. He sought only to protect his fellow soldiers, and in doing so, he created tactics that are still used today. Every sniper who graduates from U.S. Army Sniper School learns the 6-rifle rotation system. They learn position rotation. They learn how to make one person look like many. And they learn it from Francis Weston, a man who learned it poaching deer in West Virginia during the Great Depression. That's the legacy. Not the 96 kills, not the medal. The legacy is that a poor coal miner's son innovated tactics that save American lives to this day. Francis Weston was buried with full military honors. The honor guard fired a 21-gun salute. 7 rifles, fired 3 times each, 21 shots. Francis would have appreciated the irony. 7 rifles, just like his system. But the real honor came 3 months later. The U.S. Army Sniper School renamed one of their training ranges. It's now called Weston Range, where sniper students learn position rotation, where they practice the 6-rifle system, where they learn that sometimes the most effective tactics don't come from military academies. They come from poor people who had to be smarter than the authorities to survive. Francis Weston's story is taught in 3 contexts now. First, in sniper schools, as a tactical innovation. The 6-rifle rotation system, how to make one sniper look like many. Second, in leadership courses, as a case study in justified disobedience, when to break orders, when to take initiative. Third, in military history classes, as an example of individual actions changing outcomes. One soldier disrupting an entire German regiment, buying time, saving thousands. But there's a 4th lesson that isn't taught as often, the class lesson. Francis Weston was poor, coal miner's son, 8th grade education, learned to shoot by poaching deer illegally. No formal sniper training, no elite military academy, just survival skills from Appalachia. And he outthought a German regiment. Why? Because poverty teaches you things wealth never does. When you're poor, you learn to be efficient. Every bullet counts. Every mistake matters. You learn to improvise. You don't have the best equipment, so you use what's available. You learn to think creatively. The rules aren't designed for you, so you find ways around them. These aren't military skills. They're survival skills. But they translated perfectly to war. Francis Weston succeeded not despite his poverty, but partly because of it. He'd spent his entire childhood learning to be invisible, learning to outsmart authority, learning to do more with less. And when he arrived in France in 1945, those skills made him one of the most effective snipers in the European theater. The final words of Francis Weston's eulogy. We honor Francis Weston not just for his 96 confirmed kills, not just for the Distinguished Service Cross, not just for the tactical innovation. We honor him because he represents something fundamental about the American soldier. He was not born into privilege. He was not trained at elite academies. He was a poor coal miner's son who learned to hunt by breaking the law to feed his family. And when war came, he brought those skills to the battlefield. He protected his brothers. He saved thousands of lives. And he did it by thinking differently. By taking a deer poaching trick and turning it into a sniper tactic that's still taught today. That's the American story. Not aristocrats leading from behind, but ordinary people doing extraordinary things when circumstances demand it. Francis Weston was ordinary. Until January 20th, 1945. And then he became extraordinary. Not because he wanted glory, but because Americans needed him. And he answered. If you found this story important, if you believe soldiers like Francis Weston deserve to be remembered, please like this video. It helps YouTube's algorithm show these stories to more people. Subscribe to the channel for more forgotten war heroes, and in the comments below, tell us where are you watching from.